Ethan Parker stared at the jagged edge of the half-finished table, his hands trembling slightly as he rested them on the rough wood. The sunlight streamed through the dusty windows of the small workshop, highlighting splinters and uneven surfaces. He swallowed hard, trying not to think about the empty pantry at home or the worried faces of his younger siblings waiting for breakfast. It had been 3 weeks since his father, Thomas Parker, had passed away from a sudden illness, leaving the family in a precarious state. 15-year-old Ethan was now the man of the house, responsible for keeping the family afloat while also confronting a challenge that seemed impossibly daunting. The Parker home was modest, nestled in a quiet rural town, but the workshop had been Thomas's pride and joy, a place where ordinary planks of wood were transformed into extraordinary furniture. Ethan glanced around the room. The smell of sawdust hung heavy in the air. Tools were scattered across benches, some covered in rust, others still sharp from years of careful maintenance. He could hear the quiet coughs of his mother from the kitchen and the soft whispers of Sammy and Lucy as they tried to entertain themselves in the living room. Money was tight, food was scarce. Most kids his age would have walked away, taken any odd job they could find, or sold the tools that had been their father's legacy. Most kids would have chosen the easy way. But not Ethan. He stepped carefully over a loose floorboard and pushed aside a stack of scrap wood. That's when he saw it, a small, dust-covered chest tucked away in the corner of the workshop. Curious, he bent down and lifted the lid. Inside were his father's journals, yellowed with age and filled with diagrams, notes, and sketches. Ethan's fingers traced the careful handwriting, the tiny symbols, the meticulous attention to every detail. There were notes about types of wood, angles for cuts, sanding techniques, even the pressure needed to plane a surface without damaging it. Ethan swallowed hard and whispered to himself, "Dad, I can do this. I have to." That night, he sat on the worn wooden floor of the workshop, opening the first journal. He didn't understand everything. Technical terms danced in front of his eyes like a secret code, but he could feel the possibility. The chance to continue what his father had started. He took a deep breath and placed his hand on the journal. "I'm a carpenter," he said softly, almost as if saying it aloud made it real. "I will honor Dad's work. I will make something worthy of him." The next morning, before the sun had even risen, Ethan was up. He struck his first plank with a hammer. The echo loud in the empty shop. The wood didn't cooperate. The legs of his first stool splintered and collapsed. Hours of work seemed wasted. The second attempt cracked in half. The third, fourth, and fifth attempts were equally disastrous. His stomach growled with hunger, and the faint smell of burnt wood lingered in the air. But Ethan didn't give up. "I just need to learn it," he muttered, rubbing a hand across his sweaty forehead. "I'll figure it out. I have to." Each day, he woke earlier and earlier. He studied the wood, noticing the grain patterns, the knots, the density. He practiced the motions of planing and hammering in the air, perfecting angles, wrist positions, and force. He began keeping notes in a separate notebook, charting everything he tried, what worked, and what failed. His neighbors whispered about him, some shaking their heads. "That kid's lost it," one neighbor muttered. "Why waste so much time on a single chair?" Ethan didn't respond. He didn't need approval. Every failure was a lesson. Every mistake was a step toward mastery. He began to understand that the path to excellence wasn't about speed or recognition, it was about connection, care, and focus. He learned to listen to the wood, to feel its resistance and softness, and to respond accordingly. By the end of the 6th week, a small breakthrough occurred. A tiny chair, uneven but solid, emerged from hours of work. It wasn't perfect, but it was proof. Ethan could create something lasting. The thrill was not in showing it to others, it was in knowing that he had done it right, that he had begun to understand the craft. And in that quiet moment, alone in the workshop, Ethan felt something ignite inside him, a spark of purpose, a commitment to a path that would demand everything he had. He didn't yet know how long it would take, or how many failures awaited him, but he knew one thing: he could never go back to simply trying. He had to become the carpenter he had declared himself to be. Ethan's first real success came quietly. It was early one morning, just as the pale light of dawn slipped through the workshop windows. He was working on a small cabinet, testing a new technique his father had mentioned in passing. a method of sanding that required patience and careful observation of the wood's grain under shifting light. He paused, resting his hands on the smooth surface, and felt the subtle imperfections disappear under his touch. A rush of pride washed over him, but it was different from the satisfaction he had imagined. It wasn't about anyone else seeing the cabinet, or even buying it. It was the knowledge that this piece was exactly as it should be, perfect in his eyes and in his heart. "That's it," he whispered, almost reverently. "That's what Dad wanted me to feel." From that day, Ethan established new routines, rituals. Really, that gave his work purpose and focus. He woke at 4 a.m., swept the workshop, arranged every tool in its place, and spent 30 minutes sitting quietly, thinking about what he would create that day. Sometimes he meditated, other times he simply breathed, feeling the weight of responsibility and the potential of the wood before him. He began to see his failures differently. Each splintered chair, each cracked tabletop, became a teacher rather than a setback. He experimented with joint angles, sanding techniques, finishes, and the pressure of the plane. He tested different woods, noting their density, flexibility, and reaction to tools. He learned that rushing destroyed the essence of the work. That speed was the enemy of excellence. And that attention to detail, even in areas no one would ever notice, was sacred. One afternoon, as Ethan was carefully adjusting the legs of a chair, his mother peeked into the workshop. "Ethan, are you sure you should spend so much time on this one piece? Maybe you could make more, sell more, earn a little extra money," she said gently, worry evident in her eyes. Ethan paused and looked at her. "Mom, it's not about making a lot of chairs. It's about making good chairs. Every detail matters. If it's not right, it's not worth giving to anyone." Anna hesitated, then nodded. She could see the fire in her son's eyes, the determination he carried that mirrored his father's. Weeks passed, and slowly, his work began to attract attention. Local families, initially hesitant, started buying his pieces, impressed by the care and quality evident in each item. Yet, Ethan refused to compromise. He didn't want fast sales, he wanted mastery. He noticed things others didn't: the subtle curvature of a table leg, the smoothness of a drawer that would never be seen, the balance of weight that made each piece feel natural in the hands of the user. Word of the boy's dedication began to spread. One morning, a well-known artisan from a neighboring town walked into the workshop unannounced. He was tall, with graying hair and calloused hands that spoke of years of craft. And he looked at Ethan with skepticism. "So, this is the 15-year-old who's been making waves," he said, eyeing a cabinet Ethan was polishing. Ethan didn't flinch. He continued his work, sanding the hidden joints with meticulous care. "Yes, sir, I do my best on everything I create, even the parts no one will see." The artisan raised an eyebrow. "Even the hidden parts?" Ethan nodded. "Because if I know it's imperfect, I can't deliver it. It doesn't matter who sees it, I know. And that's enough." The artisan watched in silence for several minutes, then let out a low chuckle. "I like your honesty. I'll commission a piece from you. Take all the time you need. Do it the right way." For 3 months, Ethan labored over that single commission, treating each cut, each plane, and each finish as a meditation. He lost track of days, waking before dawn and working long after the sun had set. Each strike of the hammer, each sanding stroke, became a ritual in itself, a way to connect with the wood, the process, and, in some unspoken way, with his father's spirit. When the piece was finally finished, it was not just furniture. It was art. The artisan, examining the piece, ran his hands over the curves and angles, his brow furrowed, eyes shining with a rare mixture of surprise and admiration. "I've never felt anything like this," he said softly. "You've put yourself into it. Every detail tells a story." Ethan felt a warmth in his chest, not pride, exactly, but recognition that he was on the right path. He had discovered something far greater than skill or reputation, a connection to his work that transcended effort, a commitment that would define him for life. And from that moment, Ethan knew the truth of what his father had always tried to teach him. Excellence wasn't about impressing others. It was about respecting the craft, respecting yourself, and dedicating every moment, every motion, to something higher than immediate reward. 20 years had passed since Ethan Parker had declared himself a carpenter. The boy who had once struggled with splintered stools and cracked tabletops was now a man whose hands bore the marks of decades of devotion. His hair had darkened to a deep brown, flecked with gray at the temples, and his skin was weathered from hours spent over workbenches and polished wood. Yet, each morning, without fail, Ethan rose at 4 a.m., stepping into his workshop with the same reverence he had felt as a 15-year-old boy. The routines he had built were unchanged, sweeping the floor, arranging every tool with care, and pausing to breathe, to reflect, and to prepare himself for the day's work. These were not habits born of obligation, they were rituals that connected him to the craft, to the legacy of his father, and to the man he had chosen to become. Ethan had apprentices now, young men and women eager to learn the trade. But he did not begin by showing them how to hold a plane or sand a table. Instead, he taught them the philosophy that had guided him, the importance of intention, the sacredness of process, and the irreversibility of commitment. We don't just make furniture, he would tell them, we create extensions of ourselves, of the care we put into our work. Every detail matters because someone, somewhere, will feel it, even if they don't consciously notice it. It was not long before Ethan's reputation extended far beyond the small town where he had grown up. Artisans and collectors from distant cities came to commission pieces, willing to wait months because they knew his work was not merely functional, it was a reflection of discipline, soul, and mastery. Yet, despite this recognition, Ethan never worked for acclaim. Every piece, whether sold to a neighbor or a prestigious collector, was treated with the same attention and devotion. He measured success not in praise or profit, but in the quality of his connection to the work itself. One crisp autumn morning, a young apprentice named Caleb watched Ethan carefully plan a complex inlay for a custom cabinet. "Why do you take so long on something that won't even be seen?" Caleb asked, a note of frustration in his voice. Ethan paused, looking at the young man. "Because I see it," he replied, "even if no one else does. I know if it's right. Delivering something less than my best, it would hurt me. Excellence isn't for them, it's for me, for the craft, and for everyone who will experience it." Caleb nodded slowly, beginning to understand what so many people had struggled to grasp. Excellence was not about impressing the world. It was about honoring your own standards and taking responsibility for every action. Ethan's life had become a living demonstration of this principle. Over the years, he trained dozens of apprentices, instilling in them the same dedication to detail, the same reverence for process, and the same unyielding commitment to quality. Technique alone was not enough. Spirit and intention had to guide every motion. As his apprentices flourished, they carried forward the same philosophy, extending his influence far beyond what any single person could achieve. And yet, for all the recognition and skill, Ethan never lost sight of humility. Each day, he continued learning, testing new techniques, and exploring the nuances of materials. The more he mastered, the more he realized how much he did not know, a liberating truth that freed him from the paralyzing desire for perfection. His aim was not to be perfect, but to be better than he had been yesterday. The Parker workshop remained a place of quiet reverence. It was never the largest, never the fastest, but it was always the best. Visitors often marveled at the precision, the beauty, and the care poured into every piece. Yet Ethan worked on tirelessly, not for recognition, but because this was who he had chosen to be. Excellence had become a part of his identity, inseparable from his very being. In the end, Ethan understood the true lesson of his journey, that excellence is not an act performed for applause. Nor is it a skill acquired overnight. It is a habit, a way of living, and a choice made every day. It is found in the dedication to the unseen details, the patience in the process, and the unwavering commitment to doing what is right even when no one is watching. To anyone watching this story, the lesson is clear. Choose to pursue excellence in what matters most to you. Commit fully, take responsibility, embrace humility, and honor the process. Your growth, your mastery, and your legacy will follow naturally. Thank you for staying with us through Ethan's journey. If this story inspired you, please leave a comment sharing which area of your life you want to excel in. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss future videos filled with lessons, inspiration, and stories that will help you grow. Remember, excellence is not an act, it is a habit. And it begins with a single choice today.